So every year here at Health Me, we like to look at what's actually happening in the year that's gone by and also think about what's going to happen in the year to come in the health and fitness industry. So every year we distill what we think will be the trends, then we go back on ourselves and we have a look and see if we're actually right. So last year I predicted that hiking was actually going to take a big turn for the better and that more people were going to be getting outside, and that is true. A lot of people are doing this, but what I would say, definitely here in South East London, Nordic walking has gone quite mental. All ages are getting involved. I've seen grannies taking out their kids early on a Saturday and Sunday morning, and there are lots of websites at the moment that will help you find a Nordic walking team that's close to you. So I would suggest Googling it. There's certainly one in Lewisham in Ladywell Fields every weekend. So yeah, that has taken off, but not necessarily hiking, which is what I said. Hypnotherapy was one of the other things that I said would take off in 2019. Whilst this is gaining momentum and it's always been a staple of the kind of like psychological world, it's not necessarily taken off in the way that I thought it might with people's choices with regards to food and drink. That's because people are tending to follow more trends that are coming out that certainly came more to the forefront in 2019 with regards to fasting and more plant-based diets, and low carb as well. So I'd expect to see more of those in 2020 rather than things like hypnotherapy. He also talks about employer responsibility. Now this is big, this is really getting big. Lots of companies are taking employee well-being a lot more seriously. Big players like Google, Accenture, SAS, to name a few, are really starting to invest in small companies that are developing apps such as Wellbot, which is a little thing that pops up on your screen, asks you how many cups of water you've had during the day, have you done certain desk exercises. Employers can also tap into the back of it to say, we know that this employee is pregnant, so we're going to encourage them to do more. So that kind of thing is really getting more popular and will continue to get more popular in 2020. The other thing I said would get quite interesting in 2019, has taken off even more, was lifting heavier, especially for women. This has really taken off to the point where there are now specialist classes where you can be taught how to lift heavier. There is one actually that I'd like to mention, a group called Strength Ambassadors. So they are actually running sessions that will just cover off one move or one or two moves within a session with women to get them more into the strength arena and get them into the resistance area of the gym. Another thing that I said that would happen would be more home workouts. Now this is huge. This is real big business in 2019 and will continue to be in 2020. One of the things that has gone quite big is mobile friendly applications, and also people like that are on YouTube that we all know of, people like Joe Wicks and things like that. But the Couch to 5K app from the NHS has had a resurgence, and also things like Adaptive is also taking a bit of a hit in the fitness industry, and I think we'll see more of that in 2020. Another thing that I said would happen, and I'm sad to say it hasn't happened as much as I thought it would be, was that we would be getting off of the scales and we would be throwing them in the bin and they wouldn't exist necessarily in bathrooms going forward. Unfortunately, the fitness industry is still very much so on the scales and we are still very much so talking about weight. However, there was a lot of movement in 2019 talking about body positivity, and it's definitely taking a leap in the right direction where people are thinking about, how do I feel in my clothes? How do other people perceive me? And how do I feel today, rather than just looking at a number on the scale. So it's moving in the right direction, but I think we've got a long way to go before we can actually get rid of the scales. And the last thing I also said that would get bigger in 2019 was wearable tech. This is not going away in 2020. It's getting bigger than ever. More people are using it, and the big thing that we saw launched in 2019 was group exercise wearable tech. Perhaps, it's not taken off as much as I anticipated to be used by everyone, because unfortunately I think group wearable tech is still very much so used by the hardcore fitness fanatics amongst us, whereas we actually just need to flip it on its head and kind of reframe it as a positive mechanism to be able to encourage the neighbour in our exercise class rather than try and compete against everyone. That's kind of where it is at the moment. But otherwise, no, a very, very good 2019, and I think a lot of those trends are going to continue into 2020. But there are definitely going to be some new trends in 2020, and some of the things that I have picked out, HIIT, as we know it, high intensity interval training, is still going to be absolutely massive in 2020. But what is also coming in 2020 is HIIT. So that is high intensity, low impact training. So we all know that HIIT is a great way to get fit, but what it does tend to do is it tends to put a lot of impact on our joints, and that means that a lot of people can't necessarily get as involved in it as they would like, especially people that are a little bit older, people that have been injured, people that maybe are pregnant. So it's going to hopefully in 2020 become a more encompassing thing by including lower impact variations of those types of exercises. So just to name a few, here's a few ideas. You could do the stable bolt into a mountain climb. That's certainly a lot less impact. You could do uphill running with a resistance band around your waist. You do need somebody else to help you with that, but it's quite easy to kind of switch between you. You could do plank jacks into squat thrusts, so keeping it nice and low, but not increasing the gravity. You could do bear crawls back and forth. I mean, they are pretty hard, but give them a go. You could do a 500-meter sprint on the rower, if you're in the gym. That's a lot less impact on your knees. Or you could do high resistance levels on the stepper, for example, for a certain amount of floors, but with that resistance whacked all the way up. And I mean it, no hands. You've got to take your hands off the handlebars. Big challenge. So as I said before, wearable tech is something that was huge in 2019 and is going to continue to be even bigger in 2020. How's it going to get any better? Well, I can tell you that it is going to be more focused on providing accurate maps with better access to downloadable off-road trail running maps. It will also feature potentially things like, I need to look up this word, it's pretty hard, electrocardiograms as well to monitor heart problems, or if you have a known heart problem, then that certainly will be able to alert you when things are happening in your body, when you are under duress during exercise. And sleep trackers that may determine what kind of workout your body is going to be prepared for the next day or within that week. So wearable tech is definitely going to get more intelligent in 2020. So I just kind of mentioned a few different moves a moment ago, like the bear crawl, the stable bolt, that type of thing. Now that leads me on to primal movement training. Primal movement training sounds like I want you to roll around on the floor like a bit of a monkey. Kinda, I do, but more also so like a 1-year-old child would. This is about stripping back exercise to its core and making sure that it's kind of linked to HIIT as well, the low impact but high intensity training element of it, where we can move almost like our ancestors did, rather than doing all the things that we've kind of invented as being kind of routine, like going for a 5k run or something like that. This kind of training, by moving like that closer to the ground in smaller, more defined movements, is meant to increase mobility. It's meant to help us prevent injury. It's also meant to coordinate our longer bodies, because we have grown as human beings and we're a lot taller now. So getting back to the ground and actually having a sense of gravity will help us coordinate ourselves a little bit better. It will also provide exercise regimes that are kind of flexible and really free-flowing, that you can pretty much do anywhere. Like that thing that I posted on Instagram the other day of that hotel that had given exercises to its clients when they were staying that you could do in your room. Primal movement training is something you can take everywhere and anywhere, because you just do not need any equipment to do it. It is hard, but once you get the hang of it and you get the kind of used to the movements, then it'll be a lot easier. But practice just really does make perfect in terms of primal movement training. Another big thing. So we've all been told that doing things like hot yoga and things like that is an amazing way to get our metabolism kick-started. The mindset is kind of shifting on that now, and people are saying, actually, we now need to exercise in colder temperatures to kickstart our metabolism. And also, when you exercise in a colder temperature, you are more likely to be able to go for longer, which means you get even more out of your workout. So people are now saying that it's better to work outside. Yay for me, being a mobile personal trainer, and also just generally good for mental health, getting outside. So that's going to have a lot more kudos in 2020. The other thing, I haven't really touched on food yet. One of the things that is going to get bigger in 2020 is not necessarily full-on veganism, because that is a way of life. There's a way of eating, because that's what you choose, either ethically or if it works for your body. which is why we shouldn't treat it as a fad. It is a diet-based thing. But what will happen, and what is starting to happen, is people are thinking about, how do I introduce more plant-based type foods into my diet, and starting to throw things like meat and kind of cheese and things like that on its head, and introducing more of the kind of the leafy greens and the more things that come from plant-based derivatives. So we're definitely going to see more of that in 2020, teamed with lower carbs, lower sugar, more sobriety. More people are definitely practicing that these days, and just generally and fasting. Fasting's the other thing. Sorry, I did mention it in 2019. Into 2020, fasting is going to become is a staple of the nutrition world. The other two things I want to mention is the turning it off movement is definitely going to gain more momentum in 2020. So Apple, when it updated its new iOS, decided to deliver to us kind of screen time facts and figures, which is kind of making more people think about how they're using their items of electronics these days, so their phones, their iPads, their laptops, things like that. It's actually showing you what you're doing and how long you're doing it for. And more people are thinking about actually putting the devices down, leaving them at home, and engaging more in friends and family time. So we're going to see more of that in 2020, the turning it off movement. The other thing we're going to see more of in 2020 is more mobile applications with regards to exercise, and also mobile applications that come with pieces of equipment. So things like Peloton and Shape, two of the kind of the more expensive ones out there, but we're going to see more of that, where people are going to be delivered a home workout kit along with an app that will support them on their journey, so they can do exercise in the comfort of their own home, in their hotel, when they're visiting friends and family, when they're on holiday. So it's something that's really personal that they can then carry with them. And also personal trainers are going to do more one-to-one stuff, but through mobile applications in 2020. So there you have it. In 2020, let me sum up. Basically, we will be protecting our joints with more high-lit type exercises, high intensity, low impact training. We will be wearing even more clever tech, which can be a little bit scary given there's this whole spy thing going on at the moment, but don't worry, I'm sure it's not that bad. It's just there to help us get more a lot fitter. We're going to be jumping, and we're going to be wandering around like a 1-year-old child. So if you have a 1-year-old at the moment, that's even better. You can just follow them around and get some primal movement training in. We're going to be switching up to a more plant-based diet, and a lot of us will be giving up alcohol, if not just for January. A lot of people are thinking about giving up in general. No beer for a year challenge is certainly taking off. We're going to be turning off our phones and potentially leaving them more at home and engaging more with people face to face. And we're going to be exercising in the cold. And as I said, but if you don't quite fancy exercising in the cold, you can always go digital, and you can do one-to-one with personal trainers like myself over lots of apps like GymCube, for example. So there you have it. What an exciting year we've just left behind. What a decade we've just left behind. But there is an even more exciting year to come with lots of things in the health and fitness industry. I hope that was a really good overview. Does go to show that I don't always get it right, but I think that's because the year is really fluid, and there's a heck of a lot more that I think will pop up throughout 2020. So it'll be even better to do this review again, but in January 2021. So there you have it. Thanks guys, have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.